So, for example, if, like you're in the finance business, so the way you understand money and the way you study money is completely dedicated to this one subject, which is finance, right? But
Hmm.
for other people who are in different avenues of their life, like you said, savings and investments, particularly in investments, most people don't have the time to study the company or do their research. Do you think it's a good idea to have their own financial investor or someone who handles their investments for them? Because, for example, if I'm professional, do you think for me it's a good option to hire you as my finance person because you know the subject well, and I don't really have the time, or much rather the interest because I may not be as good as you are, and I'm sure
Sure.
I'm not as good as you are because you have given so much of your time and your expertise for this subject, and I would just go haywire to study this entire subject from scratch because I want to pay attention to what I'm good at. So do you think
Yeah,
that's like a good option to do?
that's an excellent question. One thing I'll say is with technology, there are a lot more opportunities and options available to people now than there were in the past. So I think it's important always to leverage the tools that are available to help you be successful. And you brought up an excellent point. I mean, the reason why people have financial advisors is because either they just feel like they can't understand the subject or they're just busy. I mean, I worked with some very, very successful corporate executives that were smart enough to do it on their own. But they have their work, they have their family, and they have all these other things. And it's helpful to have someone that looks over it for you, that understands your goals, understands your priorities, your risk tolerance, understands your family, understands all that. So I think where a financial advisor comes in and adds value is for people that either don't want to do it on their own or can't do it on their own. And I think the biggest value add that a financial advisor puts on the table is, from an emotional perspective, because when markets are going straight up, as they have kind of for like the past 10 years or so here in the US, it's easy to be an investor, right? You just throw money at it and just keeps going up and up and up and up, and you feel like you're Superman. But when you really study finance, you learn that these things happen in cycles, and we just happen to be in a very long one. So when this thing turns around, there's going to be a lot of people that panic because they didn't have somebody there to tell them, hey, listen, the reason why we're not taking on a lot of risk is because of this. So that's one thing. But also, one thing that I've seen in the industry that I think is very interesting is the rise of what's called robo advisors. So there are like apps out here in the United States. We have one that's called Betterment, which is designed to be just like a robo financial advisor. You tell it what your goals are, you tell it how much time you have, and then it'll give you recommendations, and then you just save into a portfolio that it creates for you. And man, I think that is potentially a great option for people that that don't want to learn or they're busy. Because I'll be the first to say I think that knowing investing is important, but I think it's more important to focus on the things that will bring you more money, if that makes sense. So being really good at your job, for example, that brings in more money because you can have all the investment knowledge in the world, but if you're not bringing in more cash flow, it doesn't really matter. So it's kind of finding that balance. And then I think it's important, as we talked about a little bit, to have a strategy around what your goals are and being disciplined around that. Because I'd have clients where we had almost all their money in a strategy, and we're trying to focus on that, but then they had like a smaller account that they did some trading on their own. And I said, hey, that's fine. You can go and do that, because I know some people find enjoyment in that, and that's fine. But make sure that we don't deviate too much from the primary strategy. So I think that it would be a reasonable thing to do to have the primary amount of your investing in some sort of strategy if you're not comfortable doing it on your own. And then if you do want to do some trading on your own, do that with an amount of money where if you lose it all, that it's not going to make a big difference in your life. So I think that, yeah, with the rise of robo advisors and technology, it's definitely changing things. And I think that it's more important to focus on things that will bring in more money to your household. And I know investing, when you're learning, it's all new and exciting, but there comes a point where you know what it takes to be successful. Now it's time to make the money to actually acquire the assets, if that makes
True.
sense.
That's true. That's true. Because for a person to study the subject right from scratch, it could first be very scary. And
Yeah.
even if I pick up a subject, I only have the knowledge about it and I don't have any practicality involved. So something which may seem very profitable on paper could very well be the other way around in real life,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Based on different circumstances. So when
Oh yeah.
I speak to a person like you know what the current market trends are, and you know, depending upon my personal goals and what I want to do, you know where I should be particularly putting my money in.
Yep.
And since, like you said, money is an emotional subject, I could get emotional with my money or my investments. But you being a professional, that you are, it's not your money, and you're kind of like your client, so you would
Yeah.
deal with it very rationally, and you would be the perfect person kind of to judge me, because you first of all have the knowledge and the know-how, and you are not emotionally connected with it, so it's very logic based and a lot less hard based.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's very true.